Here we go. Boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record of the On the People's Podcast this evening. We have a magnificent guest with us today, a legend in his own right, someone who has been in the nation and on the battlefield for decades, helping to establish Islam here in North America, and that is none other than our brother Barney Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Yes, sir. And we look forward to getting some amazing information as well as inspiration from you. Thank you. And thank you to your family on behalf of myself and my family, as well, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. We want to get straight into it. And we want to know, sir, when was the first time you heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Oh, thank you, sir. And of course, before I start, I definitely want to give praise to Allah, who came 9,000 miles in the person of Master Farad Muhammad,
Yes,
raised
sir.
up that great man, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then raised up that man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and found a brother like me out here, a walking fool, and raised me up where I can even be on the podcast with anything to say. So I thank you, brother. Uh, I first heard of the teachings, meaning actually hearing the teachings consciously. I was born and raised in Chicago. The nation was up and rolling. I'll be 70 years old in August, so I was here during the 60s by Allah's blessing. But because I was so deep in the streets, I didn't even hear anything. It wasn't until 1973. I was about 19 years old then. And I was having an issue with some of the syndicates up here in the Chicago, and I ran down to Georgia. I was on Auburn Avenue. I was staying at the YMCA down there off of Auburn Avenue. And I was walking down the street, and there was a steak and take restaurant, 1974. And the brothers, I went in there and I saw them. They were making those steaks and fish sandwiches. And the brother said, "Brother, why don't you come out and hear what Muhammad's doing for the black man?" And he had this white Cadillac. And he put me in that Cadillac and he said, and he drove me down. They said, "Well, we're going to make a stop first." And they stopped by the basketball court. It was a warm day. And as they pulled up, the brothers, the FOI pulled up. And I didn't know about FOI, I just knew they were brothers for the nation. And the brothers in the playing ball was running and fitting to make a layup. They saw the brothers and started running right in the middle of their layup. I said, "What are they taking me to?" They took me over to, was on Bankhead, where Temple number 15 was at that time, 1974. And the minister at that time was Minister Abdul Rahman, the rock of the South. And he wasn't doing a lecture. We were listening to the 1974 Savior's Day address of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being piped over into the so that was my first time hearing the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So of course, brother from the hood, first time attendance, I was a first time acceptance. I stood up and accepted the teachings there, right there, in 1974. After the meeting, I went and greeted Minister Rahman and all of the brothers. But the only problem was no one told me about any orientation, when to come back. So I left the mosque not knowing what else was the next step. I believe I had one message to the black man book. And I was out in there acting a fool in Georgia, what you don't want to do. They wind up carrying, I wind up getting charged with armed robbery, sentenced to 20 years in jail down in Beaufort, Georgia. Back that time it was called Rock Quarry Prison, working on the highways and so forth. I had never been to an orientation or FOI class, but I did have that one message to the black man. And we were able to raise all kind of sand in that prison with just one message to the black man. Praise is due to Allah. I heard all about the stories about 75, 76. I didn't do 20 years. I was still a youngster then. Even in my 20s, they had what they call the youth for offender law. so I was not. They broke the 20 years down to called 0 to 6 youthful offenders. So I was able to do just a couple of years. And I came back to Chicago in 1979. A brother named Brother Hadid, it was Brother Marshall, then Brother Hadid. He carried me to some apartment buildings across from CVS High School, and I met Brother Theon Mofty. Theon X, he introduced him to me. Yes. And I told Brother Theron about my adventure in Georgia. He said, well, the minister is getting the nation back up. And he said, you're gonna stay with this. And he made me take a death oath that I would give my life before I would leave the minister. And from there, we went over. The minister was teaching at the Institute of Positive Education. And for those who don't know, they called it EPE. It was run by Brother Haki Mahabute. He was formerly known as Don L. Lee. He was a poet and a great poet, and he was working with the children over the Institute of Positive Education, and the minister was there teaching. He would just have the message to the black man, how to eat to live, and our Savior has arrived, because he had not yet really gotten to a point where he was comfortable. You can tell that. So that was my first introductions to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'll let you ask any questions that you want from there, brother.
Great to be so alive. Excellent. This is great history, and thank you again, sir. Sister Miriam says, ASA family, walaikum salam, Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem. Sister Naima says, assalamu alaikum family, walaikum salam. Thank you both for always showing love and support, and thank you for showing love to Brother Barney. Those are the sisters who said to please extend the greetings to your wife and thank her for being kind.
I will. Tell them yes, I absolutely will, and she will be so happy. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Now let's go back to being sentenced to 20 years. How much time did you serve? How were you able to survive in the South and in the 70s like that in prison?
Well, brother, that by coming from Chicago, we're talking about that was really my last stop in prison. Ever since I was a youngster, I started in the Adi Home. Adi Home was a juvenile center up here in Chicago, Cook County Jail. I went into the military at I was just 16, going on 17. I was coming out of Job Corps, and they ran me out of the city and said, well, you either go to jail or you go to the Army. So I went to the Army. My last station was out in Fort Carson, Colorado. And again, young brothers coming off the streets of Chicago just don't feel that Army. And so we get to fighting with the MPs out there. I got thrown in the stockade, and they asked me, would you please leave my Army? I said, yes, sir, I will leave your Army. And so, I wound up leaving that Army, and again, being in the streets, so everyone knows you're in the street just doing all kind of madness. I wound up in Georgia because I had my kinfolk down there. And just being in Atlanta, being in Georgia, trying to make it, you get caught up. They got me in the Fulton County Jail. Matter of fact, I was there when the fellow I was standing on Auburn Avenue when Chenault Robinson, the one that shot Mrs. King, was there. And I saw him when he came running out to church, and I seen the parishioners beating on him. And so when I wound up in Fulton County, he would come down the catwalk and we'd be hitting them with brooms and things, That was during that time. And where you hear today how terrible it was, I'm sure it was terrible then, but it's just about some people that Allah just gives a aura that people just don't fool with you for whatever reason. I'm only 5'9", then I wasn't weighing that much, maybe 140, 50, 60 pounds. So it wasn't that I was such a domineering piece. It's just that it's just something about it. And even though I never went to and graduated. I went to college, I never graduated. Most of my time in school was F's and D's. I kept a ruckus in the class. But my punishment, I have to thank my mother. When she punished me, she made me read books. So all the time I was in there reading books. So when you go to these prisons, especially in the South, many times those in there can't read and write.
Mm,
So you have an advantage of having knowledge and ability to interpret, and then by helping them, then you become hands off, and
mm,
then you wind up with all of it. So all praise is due to Allah. He allowed me to do that, and so I could write letters real good. So I could write for them to the administration and things like that. So I was
mm.
able to move through the prison system with very little problems. Most of the time, I stayed in solitary confinement because we were very outspoken. And my last day, when they was going to release me on parole, the inmates told me if you go out on the work detail, because we would go out and build roads and things. It was a chain gang. That's what we did.
Yes, sir.
They said if you go out there, they're gonna we ride on the back of these trucks. They said if you go out there, they have an inmate that's gonna push you off the back and they're gonna shoot you for escape. So I left out of the prison out of the hole called segregation, and that's how I
Mm,
left out of there. So when you see the brothers in the prison ministry, like our national prison minister, Brother Abdul Muhammadullah Muhammad, and others like Brother Lionel, when y'all see these brothers working, know that we really need to work with our brothers and sisters behind those walls, because it's worse than slavery.
mm.
Because now they're doing it, even though back in slavery it was a government sanctioned terrorism. Now it's government sanctioned terrorism on steroids.
Mm.
So we really need to reach out at any point. I think the minister once said that we should adopt an inmate. So we really should do that. Praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And thank you again for this great testimony. Thank you,
Praise
everyone
is
who's
due to
watching the
Allah.
People's Podcast. I wanted to ask you, how did your family and friends feel once you accepted the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Oh, brother, you know, I think it's universal that anytime you show up doing something different, you know, people just be afraid. And I don't blame them, because I did hear, I stayed in the streets in Chicago, though I never heard the teachings of the messenger. I was shooting pool one day, and that's what I was doing, hustling on 79th and 8th. And there's a brother that I know, we hustle in the street. And he came in there, and I said, "Come on, brother Gerard, that's his name." He says, "Come on, knock out a few balls." He said, "No, brother, I need you to come on down here and what I'm listening to." And I looked at him, and his face looked like he had washed his face, and he had new clothes on. I said, "Oh, brother, whatever they're doing to you over there, I don't want none of it." So I can understand, and my families and so forth, they were taken aback because the change was so drastic and so forth. I still have childhood friends though, who they really did not shun me. There was
Mm,
one brother I grew up on 78th and Ada in Chicago, and this story is very important. His name is Jesse Prince, and for those who are listening, go Google his name, Jesse Prince. We came up together, close friends. I was on 77th and Loomis. He was on 78th and Ada. And as in 1979, as I was rising through the ranks or going through the ranks of the nation, becoming an FOI, he was going through the ranks of Scientology
mm,
to a
mm,
point where he rose. He was one of the highest ranking black people in Scientology under Ron L. Hubbard. He was one of those who was from my understanding, he would go all over the world as an expert witness. He was
mm,
actually the deputy director, whatever it is, for auditing.
mm,
So he was telling me when I finally came back home, he was telling me all the tragedy he was under with some of the people in the Scientology and how they were using this tool, this technology to blackmail a lot of the celebrities and people, and even himself got caught up. And
mm.
so he became the only one of the only of that caliber to actually go and to go to court and hearings against the Church of Scientology.
Mm,
And you can understand how I felt when the minister came and said, we're going to engage in Dianetics. And so I'm talking to my brother. And so I asked the minister, I said, Brother Farrakhan, I want you to uh, listen to this brother, Jesse Prince. He said, well, brother, would you please bring him to dinner? You come with him to dinner because I wanted him to hear about the concerns. And right before he was able to do that, brother Jesse, he contracted cancer and he couldn't come through. He's okay now today, but you know, we always have to be aware. We know that we can't trust this cancer stuff. But I asked him, I said, the minister is asking us to engage in this technology. And I asked him, I said, with all of your understanding, will this be a good tool for us? He said, if it was used properly.
mm,
And
mm.
so he bear witness. He loved the minister. He wrote a book called Expert Witness. He wrote a very special message to the minister and asked me to give him that book, and I did send that to the minister. But that I want them to study that because the minister's always been on time and he maneuvers us through the killing fields. Even when we run up against something like Iran, L. Hubbard, and everybody was blasting them, and some rightly so, because there were some people in the Scientology who really suffered. But we can maneuver around that because we've got the greatest teacher that they ever have in order to get us over the killing field. So we thank Allah for our brother, Minister Farrakhan. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. And speaking of the minister, um, how did you become close and a companion and a friend of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?
Oh, brother. Well, all praise is due to Allah. Well, number one, Allah blessed me to be in Chicago. So this is headquarters. So when he started rebuilding the work, uh, there weren't that many people. You know, Brother Ibrahim out of his basement is where they started. And then we had no really places to be. We were on Ipe, then we went to 47th Street, Brother Al Saladin. People remember that word, Al Saladin. He had a business building storefront over there. And that's where the minister, you would hear him talk about, we had meetings and it was the building, we had to put these bullet heaters in there. And when the sisters came out, the dresses were dark and black. The brothers were blowing soot out our nose. But that's at
Mm,
47th Street. Then when Reverend John Porter on 64th Street would allow us to use this church. So because it was a small community and we were working out of his home, 9415 uh, Damon, and the reality was that we were there and the minister was there. And so we would come in, we would come in contact with them on a regular basis. Uh, I felt so blessed at the time because the minister even allowed me to, and gave me the honor of taking his daughter, Sister Colody, back and forth to piano lessons.
mm,
So I
mm,
just felt just so honored. And in many cases, little raggedy cars we had, we would be driving the minister wherever it is that he wanted to go. And, you know, whatever car, he would sit right next to you. And I
mm,
never forget one day, well, we're talking about, got to be in the 80s. And I'm driving the minister, and I said to Brother Farrakhan, I said, Brother Farrakhan, I said, you know, when that day comes, when we have to go in and close our doors and we put our food together, I said, you know, these people are going to know that we eating and they're going to come to get us. I said, can we have guns then? And the minister looked at me and shook his head, brother, the messenger taught us that we don't carry so much as a penknife.
mm,
It,
mm,
it took me almost 40 years to this day to go back and remember the question I asked him. I said, I didn't ask the minister how we were going to feed him. I was asking how we go kill him. So I
mm,
understood why the messenger did not want us to have weapons because we were not prepared. We weren't going to do nothing but figure out how to take our people out, and we would not focus on how to give them life. So I thank the minister for that. But years later, just before they got the dope bus and so forth, the minister asked us to study the picture The Godfather. And there was one pitch scene in there with Tom, who was the lawyer.
that's
He
right.
said to them, he said, these men licensed. They're here to protect Don Corleone, and they're
That's
licensed to
right.
carry
That's right.
firearms. And if you interfere, you have to go to court to show just cause. So even with my record, with all that I had, I was able to go down to American Security with a few brothers we had in the ranks there, and we all got armed and unarmed security clearance and licenses and security. And so that was the first aspect of it. And of course, we wanted to make sure that whatever we did, we was proper, we was working in accord to the law. Because the messenger said, and I remember 1974, he said their flag is still flying. So these
Mm,
things stuck with me back then. But over the period of time, we was able, because the minister would come and engage us in the final call administration building. We would be downstairs. You might see a picture. Maybe I'll send it to you where he's in the basement. He used to just come down there. The children be down there. We'll be drilling. Brother Wahid, he was captain, and he would be drilling us down there. And so, it was family. Whether it's at his home on Damon or in the basement, we were blessed to be able to see him and talk with him as a brother talks to a brother. So we felt so good about that. Praise be to Allah.
hey, so like I said, beautiful history. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
speaking of the early days, were you ever nervous about, protecting the minister because there was no E team at this time, correct? So it was just you and the few of the brothers that was coming together to protect him. Were you nervous?
We were petrified.
Mm,
Remember now, we're we're riding raggedy cars. And we didn't want to ask the minister for gas. Sometimes we get up to the airport on the ramp and run out of gas. The minister have to get out and walk up the ramp because we wouldn't ask for gas money.
mm.
One time we was at his home, and he had just left FOI class that night before, and he reminded us, now if anything happens to me because of your negligence, you know the nation is going to come and roll on you. And so I'm at
Mm.
his home the next day on post, and the minister comes out his home and he gets into his car. Nobody there and fit to take off. I said, Brother Farrakhan, we something gonna happen to me or something happened to you. And he said, well, brother, sometimes the messenger would do that. But we were always on pins and needles. I remember it had to be the middle of the 80s. The minister was talking about a trip he wanted to make to New York with Queen Mother Moore.
Mm.
People want to get that. That was Respect for Life series number 42 tape. And he kept talking about how the lead car going up until the place, I believe it was in New York, it was hard to secure. And in the caravan, the lead car would put left turn signals on when he wanted to go right and was slowing down when he should be speeding up. So the minister finally stopped and sent the letter and the gift to Queen Mother Moore and to let her know that he did not don't feel like it's right and he won't be there. Now when the minister stopped, everyone in the caravan with him, I wasn't that there with him at that time. They said, "Oh, Brother Farrakhan, I didn't feel right either. I something wasn't sitting right with me." And he admonished them then to say, "Oh, if Allah blesses you to feel something, to know something, you have to tell me." And
Mm.
then he said, "What I need is a captain that would go in front of me and look for danger for me as I go in front of you, looking for danger for you." So I pledged to myself, no one else, from that day on, I would do that. And it culminated in 1998 when the minister apparently he seen what I was doing, and he said he stood me up with that same place where he stood Brother Theon up that same day, August 25th, 1998, and said, "Brother Barney is a watchman on the wall for Islam and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad." So I was, really taken aback because I didn't know he had he was any kind of observation of what we were doing. So all
Mm.
praise be to Allah. Yes,
Praise
to
be to
answer your
the
question, we always were nervous every time we were trying to attempt to protect the minister.
Yes,
But
sir. And
uh,
I know, go ahead, bro. I'm here.
one thing we did know is that whatever we were doing, it really wasn't that we were protecting the minister. We was really making our sacrifice for ourselves. because Allah would not have anything happen to the minister. He had him. So what were we willing to sacrifice? Were we willing to get up? Were we willing to go to the airports? Were we willing to do these things? And one of the things that really probably one of the greatest feelings I could have had, I was at the minister's home, and he said, "Brother, I need you to go to the airport. There's a brother coming back with me into the ranks. I want you to go pick him up." And that brother that I picked up at the airport and brought to the minister's home was none other than Minister Abdul Rahman, coming back to help the minister, who I first stood up in front of him and brought him back to the house. So that was one of the happiest days I could have had, brother.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent.
Praise be to Allah.
Man,
Yes,
people
sir.
showing you love all around the world, Brother
All
Barney.
praise is due to Allah. Praise is
And
due to Allah.
and yes, sir. And I wanted to thank you for helping to be the foundational stones that the young FOY, of course, the MGC and Vanguard, but primarily the brothers who were too young and weren't born at that time to stand with the Young Men's Lewis. Thank you,
Praise
for
is due
standing
to Allah.
and holding down and helping to establish, our credibility and represent the bow tie and making sure that we were good in the city of Chicago and all around, but primarily
Praise
Chicago
is due
headquarters.
to
Thank you,
Allah.
Brother Barney, for being a stepper for the Nation of Islam. Praise be to Allah.
Well, thank you, brother, because we waiting on our relief.
Yes.
So we, we were always glad to see you coming, brother. If they weren't, don't worry about them. But we were glad to see you, brother, and we're doing the thing that we could to help you to do what you wanted to do, brother. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. I wanted to ask you um what was it like being, you said Brother Whitehead was the captain. What was it like being with Brother Whitehead?
Oh, brother, uh, we were there. At that time, he was serving when the minister first started rebuilding this work. He was asking all of those under the first dispensation to come on back. And Brother Whitehead, of course, his history. He was one of the first ones there, and he was made the national secretary for the nation.
Yes,
And
sir.
so, but he was a captain out in L.A. And so,
Mm,
he was a driller. And so he was down in the basement every time we get a chance. He would challenge us, and of course, he would out drill us. And that really made me love that. If you see 1983 at the Genesis Center at that Savior's Day, you'll see us with Brother Abdullah and Brother Mustafa when he does that little moonwalk around there. That was us in that 1983 drill competition. I believe we came in second, but Brother Khalid brought the brothers from LA with the helmets and the boots,
yes,
and
sir.
with no excuses. But remember, it was since the rebuilding of the work, that was the first time we actually had a Savior's Day where we were coming from two places, Chicago and Gary, Genesis Center,
Mm,
and so we had to secure that. We was putting posters up. It was 82 degrees below zero.
mm,
We were making the pace inside the basement of the final call building. And when we got out there, by the time we got the pace up, the flyer, the posters up, the glue had frozen. So we were out there doing those kind of things. And at that time, my big brother Akbar had made me the national director of transportation about a week or two before the Savior's Day. And I said, well, Brother Akbar, how many vans we got? How many? None. How many cars we got? None. Well, but that's what it was in the nation. Then you just made it happen, and you began to work and make it happen. And so Savior's Day in the Genesis Sin was a beautiful success, and we thank Allah for those training and that trial that we overcame, strengthened us, brother. Yes, sir.
good. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be
What was it
to Allah.
like? What was it like being working with Dr. Khalid?
Oh, but Dr. Khalid. Well, but Dr. Khalid, he was a unique kind of fellow. Most of the things that Dr. Khalid did was really, uh, he always worked outside the box. I remember one day, when he became Minister of Defense, the minister had him come from L.A. And again, he sent me out to pick him up from the airport, and I was able to carry him over to the hotel in 127th and Ashland. And he came back and his presence among the FOI, we always were proud of it. He
Mm.
used to have us sit next door to there was a little, like a bar next to the final call building. And he would have us go in there and sit there just to listen to the crosstalk. Don't say nothing, just listen. And so it was things like that. We were attacked in had to be last party nine. There was a fella named LT who came up and shot up the final call building. And we chased him down. And we caught up with him. We thought he was shooting blanks because he was shooting right into our car as we were tearing his car up.
Mm.
And I was seeing the picture of the bullet hole in the car. And Brother Khalid, he had us dealing with it. And the minister was out overseas, so we had to really secure that area. So everything he did was based on a military condition, based on the militancy. And so I think that was probably the most militant time that we had between him and Brother Theon Mafdi, who I think we got so militant. We was at a place on 63rd Street called Wali Sadiq Place. And there's about 13 or 14 people standing there. It was a Saturday, so we had FOI. And the minister started to give us the information about the meaning of FOI. That's where that book came from. We were standing
Mm.
in race. And because we had gotten a little bit too militant, he even called up Brother Akbar out of St. Louis and began to name the squads after chapters in the Quran. He was Al
Mm.
Kabir because he wanted to give us balance because we was leaning too far.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He had to balance us. So that's how Brother Khalid and Brother Akbar and others had to blend in to work there. Matter of fact, the minister sent me to the airport to pick up one other person. That was Sister Ava Muhammad. I was the first time she came to Chicago, and I was blessed to be able to take her to her first apartment here on Kenwood, and was able to go in and secure the apartment, make sure no one was there, and that was the day. So we seen all of them come through Chicago, and begin to get strong, because this is the city where all the hypocrites, all the enemies were. It was like a meat grinder, and it's like a testing ground, like basic training in the military.
Yes,
And
sir.
if you
Yes,
can get
sir.
around the madness that was going on here and didn't lose sight of who you were, then you can go anywhere in the country and make it. Yes, sir. Praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir. Also,
Excellent.
our brother Wali, was the first editor of the Summer Call newspaper. Had a chance to work out with him. My mother was teaching at the city colleges of Chicago, and brother Wali was taking classes there. My mother at that time came back and said, "Well, why you can't be like this brother here, Brother
Mm.
Wali?" And he was typing like 95 words a minute and so forth. So brothers and sisters need to understand that your behavior, even though there are those out there who may not be a part of us, they watching you. They may not do it, but they know what you're supposed to do, and they're watching you. And my mother was able to grow based on not what I was doing, but what others were doing in the Nation of Islam.
Praise be to Allah.
All
Excellent.
praise to
And I want to stay right there, Brother Barney. Can you let us know your parents' name, sir?
My mother is Patricia Jones. Maiden name was Cotton, so you can understand what you get that from. And I was raised with my stepfather since I was 3 months old. My father,
Mm.
Tommy Olin Pinson, he was alive, but of course, whatever. My mother was very young. She was by the time she had me was 18. I had two older brothers, and so my stepfather came in when I was only 3 years old, but he supplied that that image in the house where you had a total family structure. He passed in 2018, but Allah blessed me to be able to take care of him for about 3 years at home, and even in hospital, he stayed at home. And I think a lot of the Muslim brothers and sisters that he used to come out to various events of the Elite 50, and he would be there, and his birthdays and so forth, and just made life beautiful for his last days. So I thank Allah for him. But my mother was an educator, She worked in the city college system of Chicago. She wanted the young girls to be able to learn a trade. So she taught early days key punch and data processing. She would elicit me sometimes. She would go and have to cram on certain programs in order to teach a class because she had not had a degree. So those who had a master's degree, and she didn't have a bachelor's, she had to learn the new program. So they were teaching Fortran, and she was teaching Fortran, and the highest level teacher wanted to teach her. She had to go learn COBOL. And so she would come home, and then she would uh, have me audit her. And so that's why I was able to learn some of the sciences of Fortran and COBOL, RPG back in the early days. Matter of fact, when I was 15 and a half, I worked in Swift and Company's computer section at 15. So I worked as a teacher at Little Flower Grammar School, teaching children from preschool to 8th grade how to program in BASIC, which is Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Code from the computer language. So though we were not academically inclined, you can learn what you want to learn.
That's
So
right.
when I came out of the in 1979 from down in Georgia, I enrolled in the Kennedy King College system, and because the minister was working with us, I mean, in one semester I was head of the president of the print club, president of the ski club. We were skiing. I was in the club council coordinator. We went downstate and we won first place in accounting, salesmanship, extemporaneous speaking. It was just the work of the minister on us, brother. It blows your mind. Here's a man with a record so terrible in the penal system, yet under the tutelage of the minister, I became director of security for one of the most powerful entities on the planet, TransUnion Credit Corporation headquarters. I was able to be head of security for Cook County's Providence Hospital, Cook County, and doctors at the same time, taking them through 2 joint commissioner surveys. Working with Brother Johnny Griffin, we on his kitchen table established AGB Security Company, and he became one of the largest there is in the nation dealing with security and investigations. So we no longer have the impossible. That's over with. So the brothers and sisters out there that got these records, we can work around that and do something for ourselves. So don't let that stop. Don't let that slow you down.
Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go ahead,
Praise
everybody.
is
Praise
due to
Jesus.
Allah. Praise is
And
due
you're
to Allah.
teaching. And thank you again. Thank you, everyone who's watching. I want to thank everyone who for each like, share, and subscription to the People's Podcast. Thank you for all of the sponsors. We have a new commercial that's coming out very shortly. If you would like to continue to show love and support, please cash app $ the People's Podcast. We greatly appreciate it. And the next question I wanted to ask you, you spoke of Brother Theon Mahdi, who was, of course, the first Supreme Captain during the rebuilding of the nation. How did you all become brothers and become close?
Well, of course, the story of Brother Theron is, I think, every brother and sister who in the nation should stop and take a page from this brother. Especially anybody in the penitentiary who are getting allowed to have Islamic materials, especially those of the messenger, to take a page from Brother Theron and another brother named Thomas Cooper. He's the one that established the Cooper versus Pate a federal case that allowed the messengers program to be put into the system. They was under the Stateville Muslim Brotherhood. They suffered in that place. The guards and so forth beat them down there because they wanted to have the messengers program in there. Brother Theron, for those who don't know who Brother Theron Mafi is, he was Brother Benny Moore's brother. Benny Moore and who just passed, and may Allah be pleased with his work. They were strong brothers in the street of Chicago. They had street credit. I'm talking about street credit. One of the major gangs that they were formulated at that time, the Satan Lovers in the Inglewood, heart of the South Side of Chicago. He was called, Theon was called Bojack. I mean, he was just well known. He's always had that leadership. So when he came out from Stateville Penitentiary, he came into the Nation of Islam under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he was part of the Honor Guard 26B. And he, the messenger, also allowed him to be the custodian of the mosque when it was at 53rd and Greenwood. And he had all the keys and so forth for that. One of his trainers, and people don't know today, and he talked about in a manuscript that he has that I'm hoping to be able to publish for him. And he asked me to do that, called The Revelations of a Black Muslim Foot Soldier. And he talks about, today people know Silas Muhammad and his work with the Afro descendants. But Silas was a captain there. He would talk about how hard it was in the days of the messenger, and how they would be training them very hard, how to go in the dark and look at something and then go back and remember what it was, how to kill a dog with your bare hands. These are the things Silas and them were teaching at that time. And he talks about that in his manuscript. But he came to help the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as an honor guard for 26B. When the messenger departed in 1975 and Wallace D. Muhammad took over, because of his stature and leadership, they elected him as the head of BAP, which would be the same as the FOI when Wallace took over. One of the questions I asked him, because I have about an hour, maybe 2 hours of video of him asking questions about his manuscript, was brother, how did you feel sitting up there snatching the Nationals off of the uniform because they took them off? And he forthrightly answered those questions. So we hopefully get that out. Now, when the minister stood up, Brother Theon became the first supreme captain for the minister when he stood back up. And that's when you hear the minister say, these are the foundational stones. And if they came to cause him trouble, they knew there was a price for them to pay. And those brother of Benny Moore, his brother, and those soldiers who came with him. Well, we were those soldiers that came with him. And so we just love our brother. There was controversy over Brother Theon. When he went to jail, there was various things. They thought that he had capitulated with the FBI because of his time. And I did about 2 years of research and was able to get the paperwork to prove that he did not do that, and then found the person that did do it. And one of the hurt is that he never was able to really get back and talk with the minister, but we kept bringing him out to the mosque. He kept coming, and the minister acknowledged him on that August 25th, 1998 condition. And so I just wanted the people to know that regardless of what you hear about our brother Theon Mafi, he said it to me, and I looked him in his eyes, and I know that man loved the messenger, and he loved the minister until he was taken off his planet. So yes, sir. Praise is due to Allah.
Praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir. And thank you, Brother Barney, for recording the history. And you said that you were working on a manuscript, so inshallah that will come out. Will you ever release the video footage as well?
I want to make the manuscript or the book and have the video, the CD or the DVD there with the footage in there. So I've talked to some of his family members and so forth, asked them for any help that they want. Hopefully, I'm going to work for the rest of this year before this year out, if it be the will of Allah, to get that out. Yes, sir. Praise is due to Allah.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you about Brother Ali. What was he like as a Supreme Captain?
Brother Ali, still, matter of fact, I spoke with him just the other day. He, number one, if everyone knows his personality, he's a very quiet-mannered individual and very purposeful. So very seldom when you deal with him that you ever have to second guess that what he was saying was real. So not only as a friend captain, but as a brother. And one thing about it, when you get people in the nation who know how to share brotherhood, when they get in positions of power, you really can't tell the difference. Uh, yeah, we don't, even though we're talking about Brother Ali, but there were brothers like him who never really got the recognition. One is Brother Michael, we call him Little General Muhammad.
Mm.
Like the Little General Muhammad was there before all of them. Very few people there, but he was there. And he held every position that you could name, and some at the same time. When I came in '79 at the 47th Street, he was Brother Robert, Brother Riley, and Brother Ali. He's known Brother George J. Exon at that time. Brother Knuckles, people may know him. Brother Anwar. These were the brothers there. And Brother Michael used to drill me at that time. I couldn't turn my left foot from my right. He used to say, "Brother, ain't them your feet? Don't you tell your feet what to do?" So
Yeah.
these are the men who today, when Brother Colin and others, when we have a contest, he would be number one. Whether it was tickets, he'll come through, sell 5,000 and move on. So these were the men when it was souvenir journals, where we was getting ads during Saber Day, we'd have phone books full of ads that we have gotten for the nation. So a lot of these foundational stones that we may not hear about, the brother Ali's, the brother Miles, who was also a Supreme Captain, brothers
Mm.
who started with the final call that you never knew was in the back when before you had the computers. Brother Now Muhammad, the back there was pacing them up with the key line pace up. Brother Nervin, who our first motor pool of the nation, where we get all the cars, we used to take them to the auction, the minister to the auction. Brother Akbar wanted a Peugeot, and Brother Wahid wanted a Seville, whatever. Um, there were brothers like Brother Al Saladin, from whom Brother Abdullah, Brother Leotis were. We got these. He ran the prison ministry out of a post office box on 47th Street. But
Mm.
it's nowhere in the country you could go and not learn about Blisco Communication Network. So Brother Al Saladin. We don't want to forget Brother Amir. We all was used to be Brother James X, my wife's older brother. And this
Mm.
brother did more on a table than most of us
Yes, sir.
see. He was made the chief emissary to the street organizations by the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I met my wife, his sister, when I was going after to find out what happened to him and trying to investigate that. But these are the people who, these are the people we have to lift up, and the stories that we have to tell about these men that were able to work on behalf of the minister and give the hypocrites distance so that the minister could have an atmosphere that he could teach in.
Yes, sir. Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. And may
Praise
Allah be
be
pleased
to
with everyone who is no longer, we can no longer see. But shout out to Brother Amir, who was very
God.
kind to me and my family when
Praise
we
be to
first
Allah.
came to Chicago. He was always very kind to us, very serious, but always very kind, very, very kind to us. I didn't know that was
Oh
your
yes, sir.
brother-in-law. Yes,
Oh
sir.
yeah,
Beautiful.
he used to we used to carry him around on that table. Sometimes somebody get out of order, brother rolled me over there so I could hit him. I mean, brother, but he was strong. If you ever get a tape of hearing him speak, he was introducing Brother Khaled at the final call. I think I
Mm.
have an old tape like that. I'll get a chance to send it to you. We got to start playing some of the clips of these brothers. Strong voice. You knew that brother was speaking, man. So yes, sir. And he ran with Brother Benny Moore and Brother Theon out of Inglewood. These were the brothers that, they did they do, but they came in under the messenger together. Brother Amir, yes, sir. Praise is due to
Yes.
Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Wonderful. Yes, sir. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned your wife, but how important has she been to, help balancing you out and your success in life, sir?
Praise is due to Allah. We just celebrated our 26th wedding anniversary just this last October 25th. We got married 2 years after the Million Man March as our contribution to the Million Women's March on the 27th, 25th of October. We couldn't do it on the 24th, was a Saturday. 25th, so we did it on the 24th. But the reality is that, when I met her, matter of fact, it was right at the time that she was losing her brother. And all the circumstances that was going on, as he had been the chief emissary to the street organization, there was controversy. And she was alarmed and concerned. And so when we came as myself, Brother Theon 2X, you need to learn about that brother. He was the Green Beret of the FOI. He used to come into the mosque and with weapons just to see if we catch him. That's how tight he was. Brother, we need to learn how to do this, do that, So, but we came to help at that time. And when I first sat down at dinner with the minister and introduced her, at that time we had gotten married, and the minister said, "Oh, we family now." So since then, she's able to begin to give me the balance, and she's a help me. I had a destiny, and she was working right there. But I never lost sight of the desire that she had to have a business. So today, she has Rosebud Reflections, affordable jewelry and accessories. The sisters all over the country, the MGT, come for the mod as well. And she not only, she's a fashion scientist. She don't
Go
just
ahead,
teach
go
them the
ahead.
clothes, she tells them how to put it on, the uniform, you wear your pearls with this. So she helps them to coordinate colors, to coordinate dresses, and even the sisters in the street who come in their little small dresses, they come out wearing the maxi dresses, looking well because she's doing that kind of work. So that has become like a post to her. So yeah, that's Rosebud Reflections in Chicago, 331 East 69th Street. And when you come through and let her size you up, get you right.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. And may we have your wife's name, sir?
Sister Dora Muhammad. Sister Dora Muhammad. Praise is due to Allah. Yes,
Praise
sir.
is due to Allah. Yes, sir. I also wanted to ask you about your greatest joy in life. What has your greatest joy been, sir?
Well, every time every time you are able to accomplish something, it becomes a joy. I guess the next new thing you accomplish becomes a greater joy. I remember in 1982, with the breakup of AT&T, my blood brother, Ricardo Pinson, he and I started the first black telephone interconnect company when the breakup in AT&T. And for those who don't know what that means, is that when Mal Bell and the federal government determined that they were a monopoly, and all of these big telephone companies at that time, GTE, Pride Tech, Illinois Bell, the Mal Bell companies, they broke them up. That means other smaller companies had an opportunity to get some of that business. So we were able to go right in there in 1982 and pick up a small part of that business, and we were successful in that. And so when the minister saw it, to show you just how far thinking that the minister is, we would go to the people. They don't think we got the authority to do that, but the minister saw it, and he had us come in. He had business systems in his home on Damon. He had us as our company to come in, take them systems out, and put them into the final call. Now, when he had us do that, he helped us because the Bell Company didn't want to do the final call building because it had been a bank and a funeral home. So the walls were so thick and they couldn't find all of the wires. And so here come two black folks, black boys from Chicago. My brother, who had went through the Air Force and learned telecommunication, electricity. I went through the little time I was in the Army. I was what he called 36K20. I was a field wireman. I climbed those telephone poles and hooked up telephone. So we came together and we was able to put the phones into the final calls administration building. And because of that time, there was a lot of issues with being able to get the credit that the minister needed. We was able to do the international hookup with Gaddafi at the Army using our company's name. That was PIC
Good, good,
telephone.
good.
It also showed us because that industry wasn't that wide. So when we replaced the minister's phones in his home instead of the business system, the basic traditional 2500 phones, we had a different colors. Usually the supplier, usually was Gray Bar, they normally have our phones equipment within 2 days. It took them 3 weeks. They sent the
Mm,
base 1 week, they sent the handsets the next week, and the third week they sent the cords in a Jerry curl box
mm,
because they know that they could cause the clients that you have to be angry if you don't get your equipment. So a lot of the believers who are out here doing business, it's not that big of an industry, whatever you in, and they control it. And if you start finding that you're getting some things that are happening, and don't it's not a conspiracy, it is happening. It
mm.
is really happening. They are sabotaging you, and they do know that you black, and they do know that you're trying to come into their industries. So we have proven that over and over again. Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Praise be to Allah. And thank you all for showing love. Thank you to our YouTube family as well, for the Musa, for the Kente, Sister Auntie, Sister Hope. Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you, how did you seeing the fall in 1975 after the departure of the messenger, how did that impact you and your family?
Well, I don't know as much as it impacted me because uh, I had not had that much interface with the nation, so I wasn't, it's
Okay,
like
okay.
I was outside, so I wasn't caught up in that issue. But by the time I came to the nation, I had a good balance and a good sight, and I guess that's why sometimes when the minister said, "Watchman the wall," I was standing out, holding posts. I think I was still processing holding posts. And one of the things I saw was a brother. They was with Silas that time, and he was working out here before we got up and going. And I was looking at one of his pamphlets, and I said, "This man gave somebody life out of the temple." I said, "Oh man, this man is really hard."
Mm,
And I was able to gauge them, but I was able to have a healthy respect because the minister was teaching us at that time. I think he came right out of the Quran, talking about, and if they he was not going to stop us from going to join on to them, and he wasn't going to keep them from joining on us. So he had
mm,
that humble condition. And
mm,
so I seen that there was a balance where everybody else was hard on each other and it was like religious gang banging. The minister was not going to engage in that. So I was able to see those conditions and see how the minister was steering us away. I never forget one of the, it had to be 83 or 82. I think we was at the one of the workshops, and Muhammad Ali was sitting there, and I'm just processing. And I'm coming in, and he looked up at me. He said, "You look alive. You look like one of the old Muslims."
mm.
And that was one of the greatest feelings I ever had for Muhammad Ali to look up there at me and say that. And I'm just coming into the nation of Islam. So that gave a boost, to us when we see that they were recognizing that the minister was bringing the Muslims back. And so, so we were able to maneuver through those conditions. One thing I did know, the minister had the study groups, the study groups that he had with Brother Jabril at the final call. The minister used to sit in those study groups. And Brother Jabril had these original works, study guides, talking about Peter at the gate. We know that to be the minister. And that, here he's asking people to come back, and he had already fallen. And so he didn't have the will to judge anybody coming back in. And he took him all of these years of building this work before Allah blessed him with that authority to do what he needs to do now. But back then, he was real lenient, and he wanted us to begin to discipline ourselves so that there would not be an exterior discipline. And he was growing brothers who were willing to do it for themselves. We didn't need anybody putting us in a straitjacket. So we loved, it was that love that kept us tight. and we did not have to have that. We looked for things to do. If we was at the we stayed at the mosque because we just loved to be there. It was that love that we had, you know. So when he brought in the blue whiting fish, we just some brothers were on the bus with these big blocks of fish and eggs, and we just loved to do that work. When we sold the final call, we didn't take it down. We gave all the money back, you know,
Mm,
because
mm.
it was just out of love. Door to door, stove to stove, floor to floor until you couldn't do it no more. That's how we did it. So all praise is due to Allah. So that's what kept us alive and balanced and watching the minister. So it really wasn't traumatic for us, but we did understand that a lot of those who came in the nation under the messenger and now had to come under the minister on this day, one of the things, and you said with the elite 50 plus, is that we have to be mindful that they gave up their youth of working. Many of them never worked a job. So that means when they enter their 60s, 70s, 80s, they don't have the energy to continue to hustle and work like that. So the question that came up is, what do we do in supportive services for those who have worked and now they are not able to do the kind of things that help themselves? And so the minister said, well, brother, we never had a supportive service agency in the nation. And so I said, what I would work with the Elite 50 Plus. I established the Watchman on the Wall ministry. And this all is dealing with supportive services for our elders, for our brothers and sisters who, for whatever reason, can't work. There were some to this day when the minister told us not to take that COVID shot. There are many of us who in the nation who were working good jobs that lost them, and they can't regain that condition. We have to develop these supportive service departments and areas, then get with our ministries and make it happen so that we can take care of our sick and our elderly.
Beautiful. And thank you for that work, sir. That's something that's definitely
Praise
needed.
be to
How
Allah.
can myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, how can we help assist in promoting and awareness and bringing support to your ministry?
Well, the ministry is working with the Elite 50 Plus very closely with the officials up here. So what we will be doing as you get the final call, we're gonna, as we develop these things, we're gonna work through the final call newspaper. As you know, the minister when Brother Khalil Muhammad departed, the
Yes, sir.
minister at his janazah, we every year we take and we commemorate our brother. And the minister said, well, we wanted a scholarship. Well, we do have that. We have a scholarship for our students coming out of MUI affiliates. And every year we give $1,000 to a brother.
Go ahead.
And therefore, that is demonstrating the characteristics of that brother. Watchman on the Wall Ministry, I'm working now to do a joint uh, fundraiser venture, because what happens is when you're working with the nation and it's very little time to help build or do a fundraiser for your own organization, because you're usually doing it for something else. You're either
Yes,
doing
sir.
it for this, you're doing it for that. I'm trying to help, and so we're going to try and do a joint fundraiser so that we can then distribute that among the various organizations. Things like the prison ministry, Brother Abdullah. Things like straight words out of WVON with Brother Nama, where you are unconditionally talking and lifting up the words of the minister, and just like yourself, of the podcast. You know, it takes the messenger say in order to have a school, you got to have money. Well, a lot of have
Yes,
to do
sir.
anything, you got to have some money, and we got to figure out how to do it. And but so no one should have to suffer because they're trying to raise for this and neglect themselves. So when you come and sit at the table at night, you want to make sure that your bills are paid for also. So I will let you know as we move forward how that, hopefully we'll put that in the next couple of months.
Praise be
Yes, sir.
to Allah. Yes, sir. Well, you have our support, and we salute you for
Praise be
that.
to
It's
Allah.
something that's definitely needed, and may Allah continue to bless you in that effort. I wanted to
Yes,
ask
sir.
you about Jesse Jackson running for president. What was that climate like?
Oh, brother, that was insane, because remember we had to stretch our, we had to have the stress to help him, but the minister had to really get us up and get going. So, but that's our minister. So when he said move out, we moved out, and I believe we made the difference. People don't realize that Jesse Jackson, he he revolutionized that party, that voting system in terms of getting new voters and so forth in. But it was a labor of love. But we were able to do that. We was able to help him, and because of helping him, we was able to engage our other brothers and sisters in the struggle. Um, so with Brother Jesse Jackson, we still work with him today. There are some issues up here today that we can work with him. A lot of people say, well, he's this, he's that. Well, look, we all slaves on the plantation. What I
Mm,
look like getting mad at another slave? You got a
mm,
problem, deal with the slave master, and you get his foot off the neck, then maybe the slaves will act all right. So whatever issue that we got with them, we can put that to the side. There are some areas that we can work on. Brother Abdul Muhammad, the principal up here, has a stellar condition. He's worked in this field for 25 years, not a blemish. And so we went to Jesse and said, hey, these are the things that you pushed for back then. And so he met with us, and they do what they can. But remember, whoever pays the piper calls the tune. So
mm,
when you organizations are taking all this grant money and this kind of money, remember, you can just go so far, and we have to recognize that. That's why the messenger wanted us to be independent. So he worked as fast as he can. We called out Jesse Jackson, or the Jonathan Jackson, because he's a congressman. A lot of folks is mute on this, and Dr. King had the same issue when he got ready to move forward. People in these areas of Congress and so forth, for some reason they got this wait and see attitude. They got to wait till
mm,
the climate is right, where you used to move right out front. Now you're waiting. And in the meantime, the children of Chicago are suffering because they got a board of education that's absolutely murdering their minds and allowing predators to be around them. So, and when you got a FOI out there, a student minister, one of the stalwart student ministers out there being attacked, I want to say to us as a nation, you tag one bee, you get all the bees on you. So I'm saying we need to look at this. We know the fair fight is we win. That's the fair
mm,
fight. We win. It ain't about no one on one. We win. So when you see any Muslim anywhere, in whatever position they're in, being attacked, then we all should be there, making sure that we're prepared to do whatever's necessary. So I just wanted to make sure that they hear that.
Beautiful. Praise be to
Praise
Allah.
be,
We appreciate your spirit, Brother Barney. And I want to
praise
just let
be to
everyone
Allah.
know that I thank you. We have to go into details, but basically, you sent me a beautiful message. The
Praise
message
be.
was received on Facebook, and it was very timely. I didn't read it at the time. I didn't go through all the messages, but when I
Yes,
read it,
sir.
it was right on time. I reached out to you, and I felt your spirit immediately. And I
Praise
just want to
be
thank
to
you for
Allah.
always having the spirit of representing and defending the believers. So that's appreciated.
Any way you
Um,
feel, brother, we got to stand up regardless of whom or what. And don't worry about getting put out the nation. Let me explain something to you, brothers and sisters.
yes, sir.
You can't get put out the nation. If Allah is with you, He'll send you out there, as the minister used to tell us. He said, even the minister said one time again on the Respect for Life series, he said, even if I put you out unjustly, go out and know that Allah is with you. So if you
Mm,
go out, keep working, and He'll protect you. But don't be afraid to stand for what Allah made you stand for. That's your test. The minister used to sit in the study group with us. And the first one, I think this is one of the first times when I started, I used to write the minister letters all the time. And probably that's another reason why he said that, because I was looking ahead. And he said in the study group talking about the first term examination, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he was talking about a second term is coming. And I looked at how Wallace was the one that gave the test, and I looked at both dispensations, because he's saying the one in the first that came under the messenger said they were saying, "Oh, I ain't gonna let that happen to me again." And here, when
mm.
the new ones are coming in saying, "Man, if I was there, I wouldn't have failed for that." And so he said, "Well, now both of you going to be tested at that time." And so I wrote the minister. I said, well, brother, the only one I know that's going to be able to do the test both dispensations is you. But I believe
Mm,
you'll be divinely protected. And so here we are. The minister just said, say today, his term has ended. So now, first term examination, this term is ended. Now we got this examination. Now, put away all your books. The test is here. So now, but we have the messenger's time and all this time up here. There's no reason for us to fail this test. This is an open book quiz, and we should not fail this test. So just don't let fear creep in. And when you feel it, you know that's what you're supposed to do it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what folks say. Just go ahead and do it. And if you do it, then Allah will keep you on the chessboard. If you don't, get you into it and get another piece. You don't need that one. The
mm.
praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir.
Excellent teacher, Barney. Right on
Praise
time.
is
Praise
due
be
to
to
Allah.
Allah.
Praise
Yes,
is due
sir.
to Allah.
I wanted to ask you on a lighter note, what type of music do you enjoy listening to, sir?
Well, I love the minister's music. And you say, brother, that's no, I'm for real. Almost 10 years ago, I sent the minister a video interpretation of the white man's heaven, the black man's hell. And he said, and he signed me a contract to do it. I just haven't done it.
Mm,
To do a video interpretation of the white man's heaven, the black man's hell.
mm,
Those
mm,
those kind of those kind of things. Those and I love rap. You know, I mean, of course, I come in the '60s Motown, so I'm Motown. But there's brothers who come up and through the rap. The last poets was mine. On the subway, and
mm,
Dunkin'
mm.
Man digging on me, but you see, me knowing me, black. Those were the kind of because everything that was constant. Gil Scott Heron,
Yes,
those
sir.
kind of things. And so, we love that. The minister about had to be a few years ago. I would go on eBay. I would find all of the minister's records, the 45 records that he had made back in the day, Black Gold, uh, uh, and those other records. And I was with the minister one day, and I said, "Brother, I want to do a fundraiser for the Watchman on the Wall, and I want you to sign these records." He looked at me and said, "Oh, I thought these were gone forever." I said, "No, sir." I said, "You on eBay?" He said, "I'm on eBay." Yes, sir. And so he said, "Man, I thought," he said, "those I could use those and make a master." So I tried to give them to him. He said, "No, you get them, just make me a master." Well, I
Mm,
did that, but then I thought about it and I said, I said, "No, I put them in these frames and gave them to him." But save the day that time I was making CDs. And he called me up and said, "Brother, I'm working on a project. I would like you to hold off on it." So 12 years later, 2017, I was at his home with Brother Khalil, and I said, "Brother Farrakhan, I've been holding off on those records, on that album." He said, and that's when he was had finished his project, as you know, that he had finished that project, and he told me he had done that. But it felt good, and if you ever go back and hear some of those old songs, you will see uh, how powerful it was that he had in those old songs. Uh, and so those are ones that really are more dear to my heart. Yes, sir. Well,
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. And people are showing you love all around the world. I wanted to
praise
ask
it.
you, Brother Barney, what would you like your legacy to be?
Um, well, it tied to the messenger and tied to the minister. Whatever is tied to it, that I did whatever I can, whatever gifts, skills, and talents I had, that I went all that I could in order to help this man. I remember when I was a little boy, I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy. I knew the Mass in Latin. I could still say it. That's how indoctrinated it is. I could still say
Mm,
it. But back then, when I saw them, one of the things that you do in the Catholic Church, you call the Stations of the Cross, when Jesus is crucified. He wasn't just crucified on one day. There was various stations that he went through. And as a little boy, I said, "Boy, if I could have been there, I'd have helped Jesus." They wouldn't have done that to him. And so here we are in 2024, and I'm able to say that my word is bond. I'm helping Jesus. So that's the legacy that the minister said he's a watchman on the wall. So I'm working on my book, A Man Born Blind, now a watchman on the wall. So and tell them how we did it and how our eyes became open to be able to see and who did it, and see you can see the difference between when I was blind and when now I can see.
Go ahead. Excellent, Brother Barney. Yes, sir.
Praise be to
And
Allah.
I gotta put you on the spot, Brother Barney. May we
Yes, sir.
please have the first interview, the exclusive, when you release the book? Can you come back to give us a part two so we can help
I
promote the
will
book?
make that a promise to you. And everybody heard me say it. And my word is my bond. And I get my head chopped off. I don't need to do it.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir. Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir. You get the first interview. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Well, I want to thank you on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. We thank Allah for you and your family. Please let your family know that we thank Allah for their sacrifices as well. For it takes a family when you're sacrificing, the family sacrifices as well. So we thank Allah for them. Man, this is my first time ever having a conversation with you, so I feel like connected with you virtually. It's an honor to meet you, sir. May Allah continue to bless you. And we locked in, Brother Barney. If you ever come to Atlanta, dinner's on me, and inshallah, I
I'm
come to
gonna
Chicago,
have
I
to
can meet
come
you.
down there, brother. I haven't been back there since I was locked up, so I got to take that Ingram out of me. So
Yes,
I
sir.
got to come. So I'm gonna take you up on that, brother. So may
Yes,
Allah
sir.
bless you. Thank you. Send the greetings to your family, brother. Our brother Sharif, please tell him, brother, we really appreciate the work and the post that he's holding, that mighty post, and it was well worth it for him the sacrifice that he made, brother. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you all for watching.